Steve, Lauren, welcome to the Content 10X podcast. It's great to have you here.
So great to be here. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
To kick this off, I think it would just be great if you could both introduce yourselves, please, just a little bit about who you are and your role. So I'll go straight to you, Steve, first for that.
Yes, great. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Steve Jones, and I have been here at Fidelity Workplace for the last 6 years, but my entire career has led me through 25 years of financial services marketing, anything from running sales and acquisition connections to most recently both in social and paid media, as well as events and webinars.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks for having us on the podcast. My name's Lauren Franklin. I have been with Fidelity Investments for a little over 2 years now, and I focus on workplace investing business and leading the strategy and execution of our plan sponsor and advisor facing conferences and webinars.
It's so lovely to have you both on the podcast, and I'm really excited. Obviously, this is culminating our webinar series that we've done. And as Amy mentioned, you guys are the pros in terms of webinars. And Lauren, I know you and I have been working closely together for the past couple of years. So to kick us off, can you tell us a little bit about all of the webinars that the team at Fidelity run?
Yeah, so specifically within workplace investing, we'll reference it as WI. You'll hear us probably reference it as that throughout. We have our 3 main series. So In the Loop, Fidelity University, and then we have TPA Today. And so those are all designed for specific audiences, plan sponsors, advisors, and third-party administrators. And we have each of those designated just because all of those groups have unique needs and expectations. And then they are all public facing. So they're available to be streamed via our event hub at any given time. And then in addition to that, we do have some smaller one-off mid-funnel webinars that our different product marketers and sales teams will run throughout the year.
And did you immediately start with one specific webinar and then branch out into multiple ones? Was there a strategy behind those?
Yeah, so Fidelity University was already in motion and working pretty well when I arrived at Fidelity a little over 2 years ago. But we needed to bring more structure and strategy to our plan sponsor content. And that's where In the Loop came in. So Steve and I have worked on In the Loop pretty much my entire time here at Fidelity. And then TPA Today was also an existing quarterly series. We've dedicated more resource to that as we've continued to grow the audience and gave it a brand name. And that those two were ongoing at the time. But the biggest shift was building out In the Loop. We wanted to create a program that streamlined our offerings for plan sponsor and advisors. So before that, we had great content, but it was structured in a way that wasn't super easy for our audience to engage with consistently. And there was very little structure surrounding how we executed, branded, and offered those webinars. So that's really been a lot of focus of my work while here is building that out and running it for the first year. We're very much in a discovery phase. And now I feel like we have our legs under us and have seen it succeed and continue to grow.
And in terms of that growth, like Steve, from your perspective, what do you see that look like, the long-term vision and growing the series as?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, right? Because as a leader in the retirement space, we are looked at to guide the way for both plan sponsors and participants to learn more about retirement and the other benefits that kind of hover or halo around retirement. And so that is why we needed to bring all of this to light with these specific series for these audiences, because being a leader in retirement means that you got access to individuals in research. So inevitably you become a leader in the research and thought leadership and insight space as well. Starting at the top of the funnel, offering that education to clients and advisors and third-party administrators was really the tip of the iceberg with regard to the strategy. And so our long-term vision is to build more scalable things, maybe a little bit more audience-specific content. If you think about being at the top of that funnel and awareness and bringing that research to life, you may have a portion of your audiences that want to dig a little deeper, or maybe they're a little more experienced in the space. And so they want to go to that second level or third level set of information or learn more about a particular product or solution. And so we're hoping that as our team starts to build and we start to get more traction, that we're able to offer those modules of learning as well, and maybe even start to scale into on-demand formats.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I guess I get a great sneak peek of all of the webinars that you've got coming up for the year and all of the coordination that you and the team have to put into it. And certainly Lauren's kind of long-term forecast of each webinar and when we're doing it, which is great to see just how much goes on behind the scenes, that and as well as your events too. And I guess over the years, do you guys really have a knowledge of what now each of the webinar formats work best and the cadence for them for your specific audiences?
Yeah, so we primarily run our webinars live. That's partly due to compliance, but it also allows us to engage directly with the audience for every single webinar. And we always include a live Q&A and collect questions during registration as well, so our presenters can prepare and tailor their responses. As Steve mentioned, we'd love to do other formats. It's a time constraint thing a lot of times, just the cadence that our webinars are running. And so with that, the series itself is new. I think we would probably change formats on In the Loop before we did any other series, but definitely something that we're looking at. But right now, all are live. So with that, you have your own set of problems that can occur, but we do use a mix of formats as well. So we'll do panels, more interview style. We typically have presentation decks that are shown during it, but we do keep slides minimal. So they're meant to really be high level. And then the focus is always clarity and delivering value.
I think if I were to add anything there, a little, maybe we're all friends here, a little sneak peek behind the curtain is when you have multiple formats the way that we do and audiences that you're dealing with, it's really important to make sure that you set up a schedule that works for your team as well. So it's not just on behalf of marketing or sales or whoever your partners are internally, but your team has to be able to run them at the rate and level that you want to have them at, right? Because you need to be successful. You need to be supporting yourself and your team internally. Our eyes can get a little bit bigger than our plate sometimes, when we're like, hey, I think we could do 50 webinars this year. And the reality is 15 or 20 is probably way better because you can concentrate more on that content and produce a better show.
Absolutely. It's all about, as you mentioned, adding that really valuable content rather than spreading yourself super thin. And yeah, I think legal might have a little bit of a heart attack if we present them with 50 webinars, but
it's really brave actually, the focus on live as well, because a lot of people are so scared of that live aspect, aren't they? But I think it's fantastic to offer that, and then obviously the access through live with Q&As like you said and things like that, and the transparency and everything that people want to see these days. In terms of the planning, obviously Steve, you just mentioned a bit about this, but there's so much. Like we mentioned the series that we've been doing, and I think Hayley and I could have talked for hours about things to do with deciding topics and titles and content and speakers and which speakers and panels and things like that. What does that look like for you guys with all of that side of things and the timelines and things like that?
It's definitely a robust process. When I started, we didn't really have steps outlined, so we created a project plan, and that has about 68 different tasks on it that we have to go through for each of our webinars. And it also includes roles, timelines, approvals. We have a lot of date-specific things that will have to get done, like our reg sites have to go through a compliance review, decks have to go through compliance review. And then sometimes speakers have scripts or outlines, those also have to go through. It's definitely a collaborative process that we work on with different marketing teams that are executing from the content space. So yeah, definitely a long and tedious process that has a lot of steps, but I think that we've streamlined it as much as possible and definitely has helped for all of our partners who maybe only do one webinar every year. And so that's what we see, that having that outline is super helpful.
A long and tedious process that we're in love with, of course. If I were to add one thing to Lauren's comments, it would just be, that's within the process of one single webinar. But if we elevate it to the strategic side of things and why we decide to have webinars on certain topics, it's important to make sure that those are aligned to both sales goals as well as educational goals. We've got, of course, just like anyone else, KPIs that are looking to be hit. But we also, as I mentioned earlier, have fantastic research teams that are filled with literal doctors that are saying these wonderful things that need to get out into the world and to be shared with our clients and advisors. And so it's striking that balance strategically so that we can get them to the point of, oh, hey, by the way, there's 68 steps to this and it's about to get real. So it really is interesting how involved building that strategy from tip to tail is.
I also just might add that we have a lot of submissions, and we've definitely changed how we do some things internally with regards to teams coming to us about, should this be a webinar? And I think that we've done a good job of figuring out like what works best. And with the series all being a little bit older, we've been able to see what topics resonate the best with our audience and speakers that seem to work better in the virtual space. And I think that has helped as well. Just really provide better content that people are interested in.
And Steve mentioning about getting information from, say, doctors, and it's really timely and you want to get that information out. If you had many situations where you got all the best laid plans in the world for all these specific topics, but then of course something comes out and it's very timely and you don't want to sit on that and slot that into the Q4 series. It's a now thing to be useful to the audience. If you had those situations where then you've really had to juggle around all 68 tasks and change the timelines, and how does that tend to go?
Yeah, I think that because we have a great system for how we stream our webinars and our registration system, we have been able to react to requests like that. We've definitely done those before. It's specifically around, it's like the series within the series, Policy 30, and it focuses on updates from Washington. And so those types of webinars, we can easily kick that project timeline into high gear and get those expedited to get out the information to the public pretty quickly. And I think that setting up those systems with templates and making compliance where like they know what a lot of this is now, so it makes it a lot easier to move forward with that process.
Yeah, you both touched on like really great points, and it's quite funny because we don't view the 68-step process as like tedious. It's just brilliant to really showcase just how many steps are involved. And trust us, like we love a process, don't we, Amy? We're like anytime we can have a checklist and a process, we absolutely love it.
I was thinking with our webinars, well, I think we'll probably take your 68 and turn it into 158 because you should see our ClickUp cards. Honestly, you should see, like, you'd think we were controlling like a Mars landing or something, like the number of steps in our ClickUp cards. So we can relate completely. But what you said, Lauren, though, if you have the process and you have the templates and the repeatable processes and the tried and tested, that is what makes you nimble, isn't it? That is what makes you able to like quickly respond and change and things like that, because the process gives you that freedom. Actually, I think like systems and processes ultimately give you freedom to be able to make switches and changes and things like that. So we're completely aligned with you on that.
Yeah, and maybe tedious is not the right, it's not the right word. I would say a lot of administrative small tasks that you're constantly inundated with, but they have to be done. So those are the things that I think, especially when it becomes repeatable, that may be why tedious came in. But yeah, definitely a lot of tasks that we have built out in different systems to make it easy for our business partners to go through the process. And it used to be that our project plan just existed on an Excel sheet that was editable and people would go in and check off things. But now a lot of that has been put into a digital format that our marketing teams can all use to see like where we are in the process.
Yeah, and I guess anybody that's listening, if you've only got 10 steps, then you've got a fair few steps you could be adding to really planning those webinars out properly.
All of those steps have 10 sub-bullets, right? It's not really 10 steps.
Yeah. And something you also mentioned as well, which resonates with us, was we've recently done our expert interview series, and we spoke about making sure that you've got people who are really great on camera. And I guess for you both, when you're doing such live events, it's really testing which members of the team actually work well on camera. So have you found that it's kind of been a trial process, or have you got team members that regularly jump onto those webinars?
Yeah, we definitely have a number of speakers that we see come back over and over again. It typically just revolves around their expertise, but there are definitely one-offs that have been really popular, and they're just lively, really engaging speakers, which I think in the virtual space is really important. But yeah, we're always looking to bring in new people. We're a bit restricted just because of the nature of the business, who has the information. But I think that there's been opportunities for us to try new things, and we're always looking for different people to bring in that might bring a bit of a different perspective or experience for attendees.
Yeah, I would add that we're really lucky, especially in those more advisor or TPA focused webinars where you're mostly dealing with our sales team, fantastically talented sales team here at Fidelity. And so those folks are used to having conversations in front of boards and in front of large crowds. So the animation is there, and the ability to clearly articulate their points is there. And I would say the same for our regulatory and legislative team. They're on Capitol Hill a lot. They're interacting with a lot of lawmakers. And so they're used to having those conversations about super difficult topics and being able to really distill confusing information to the layman, right, very clearly. Lucky, very lucky in that regard. Every now and again, you may have a more product-focused person that is a little bit of an introvert, and you look to develop scripts to make sure that they shine the most in their moment, and then we move on to the next topic. But by and large, we have been really lucky.
With your webinars, something that really stands out, I think, is that they are marketing tools, of course, but actually they're a really core part of customer education and your engagement strategy. Could you just share a little bit more about that intersection between, yes, it's marketing, but actually it's truly customer education?
Yeah, I think it was very intentional on our part because of the level of information and research and insights that we do have here at Fidelity Workplace. And so to have that be an avenue out there, we talk a little bit about marketing funnel. Traditionally, I think webinars would be mostly on that mid-funnel tactic, but we have really tried to raise it up into that upper funnel of education specifically. Now, what we've been able to do and what we've seen success with is to pair it with things like social media for promotion, and also some of the emails that go out to our clients specifically and advisors. And Lauren's done an excellent job stepping forward, providing that polish in those avenues. So if we're thinking about the pairing of upper funnel tactics like social media and webinars in this case, it just makes it a nice surround sound for communication. And then being able to obviously have the attendees, registrants' names allows us to further that communication if they are interested in learning more, which has been wonderfully successful for us.
And just on that word, success, what are the key metrics? What are you measuring, and what do you deem as success when it comes to the webinar series and benchmarks that you have?
Yeah, I think that we're always looking for a high conversion rate from invite to attendee. We have pretty large lists that we target, and so we don't really benchmark against anyone but ourselves, but I think that year over year we'll start to see trends and be able to gauge success that way. We also look at engagement during and after the event. I think it's really important to see how people are engaging. Are they asking questions? Reactions are big. We are limited because of compliance, so we don't allow an open chat. But reactions are a good way for, I think, the presenters to see what people are thinking. Sometimes I watch from the attendee side and the back end as well. And so sometimes I'll do one or two reactions to trigger, and I think it will alert people that you actually can do it, even if a speaker says it, you don't see it. But I think that not only is that great interaction from the speaker side for them to see that, but I think it's also interesting to see once people start doing it, like where are they thumbsing up within the content, or what are they loving when they do the heart. So I think those are great things. And then post webinar, we're always looking at, are they engaging with our post-event email? Are we seeing them watch the replays, which has been a huge piece of our strategy this year, is having those replays really built out and having a space for them. And I think that our end of year metrics last year just showed a huge increase in webinar replays. So that's been really successful as well. And then lastly, we're still doing a lot of A/B testing with different pieces of the engagement piece. So that could be the subject lines in emails, or it could be, how we format different pieces of the virtual event holder that we have. And I think that having those tests has really helped us refine our approach for all of the series that we're working on.
If I were to add a little bit there, it's interesting when you are managing multiple channels within a team, you start to see that you have metrics for the health of that channel and for the series itself. So we have metrics year over year that we want to improve on for In the Loop specifically, whether that be registrants or attendees, as Lauren mentioned, multi-time visitors. But then secondarily, you also have the metrics that will apply to, as I mentioned earlier, those sales goals or the penetration goals or the different things that you want to connect to the larger business. And so I think that's super important for anyone developing a webinar series to be conscious of. We think about it in social media as well. You want to have that best social media handle and understand the media mix that fits the best. Same with webinars, your style, your content, etc. But then your secondary goals, which are primary to some folks, is how does that help deliver on business objectives collectively? So it's a dual space to think about those types of things.
Yeah, it really is. And Lauren, I love when you mentioned about also being present in the back end of the webinar as well as the front end too, because we've mentioned that on our previous episodes as well. And it is so interesting in terms of how much that affects the engagement, just having a prompt by a team member to just start that engagement. It's always amazing how just something just so small by one person providing a reaction provides so much more engagement. And so, yeah, I think we personally just absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's a total pro tip, by the way. She snuck that in there. And I remember the first time she told me that she was doing it, I'm like, you're doing what? I'm like, that's so smart. So yes, thank you, Haley, for calling that out.
Yeah, I feel like too, in webinars, you have people that are joining maybe 2 or 3 minutes late. And we specifically start ours 1 minute after the hour with our intro stinger. And so with that, sometimes you'll have attendees that come in that miss that very beginning housekeeping notes section. Prompting it is just one way to have them realize that it's even an option.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's human psychology as well. Sometimes we just need someone else to go first before we can. So it's a great fun way to test that engagement. So I think anybody listening who's not present as an attendee or interacting, test the engagement before and after, because I think it makes such a difference. Really.
We've got so far into this conversation and haven't said the word repurpose, which is quite unusual for me because I would be talking usually quite a lot about the repurposing, because there's a huge potential then with the format of webinars. Of course, video format is just such a fantastic repurposable form of content, and obviously the substance that goes within the webinar or the content itself in any format, it's so repurposable because there's so much to it. So what are your views on that in terms of how do you repurpose your webinars and preferences over how to maximize and get the most post webinar?
Yeah, I think that they've definitely, replays specifically have become a huge part of our strategy and something that our sales teams are looking for. And not only sales, but also our relationship management teams. Clients aren't always available during a live webinar. So having those available and a built out event hub has been amazing. We just started tracking the engagement on those last year. So it was really the first true year that we had in the loop running. And we've since started doing replays for all of our series. And just for a historical view of what we've been doing, replays are difficult because there is a huge compliance piece. A webinar transcript is 30 to 50 pages. It's a lot for our compliance partners. And so it's a pretty timely process, but being able to work with those teams and build those out, we've seen thousands of views on our replays. So it's definitely something that clients are engaging with. And working with you guys has really just helped streamline the process and make it easy on our end. We don't have the team to do editing, clean up any issues or make those compliance edits that come through. So your team has really helped us speed up that process of getting those webinars out to attendees who missed them.
Yeah, I think, Lauren, I don't know about you, but I feel like our majority of our working relationship is like legal e-reviews, which I absolutely love. And I think one of the questions I'd love to touch on as well is, obviously you mentioned replays being such a key strategy for the webinars, but you mentioned you have a 30 to 50 page transcript to go through legal. Is there any tips for anyone listening? I'm sure there's plenty of B2B companies who have to go through legal reviews as well. Do you guys have any tips for anyone of how to streamline that legal review process to get that replay back out as soon as possible, minus us behind the scenes?
I can touch on that, and Lauren, you can obviously add to it, but I think it's about setting expectations specifically with the marketers or groups that you're working with, as well as maybe a sit down with compliance to begin with and say, hey, this is what we're looking to accomplish. Can you please give us a clear outline of maybe the words that we can't use or the phrases or whatever those, we don't want to be overpromissory, et cetera, et cetera. And then upfront provide that to every team as part of our 68-point touch base to let them know if we can keep these out of the transcript of the conversation, that's going to help us fly through on the back end. And it's that level of education, and I'll say communication, because compliance doesn't want to have to go through a 50-page transcript. And if you can help them do their job better and more streamlined, then they're going to be appreciative of that. And obviously, when you're dealing with talent like sales folks or relationship management that don't do this every single day with regard to having things monitored by compliance, they're apt to say things that may be a little more in the moment. But if they have a clear set of outline and guidelines, then they're going to get it. And cross our fingers. So far, we've been pretty lucky with that process. But I would say setting expectations, education, communication, those types of things. And of course, have a great partner like Content 10X that can help us when things do go awry and we do need that kind of compliance fix. Is certainly a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It just all comes down to that preparation and knowledge, doesn't it? And it can go very wrong if you don't have those guardrails in place to begin with in some instances.
And every business is different, right? Everyone has their kind of quirks that their legal team is willing to either let go or not let go.
Yeah. We've worked with partners in the past that have gone through, like previous to Scalable, I should say, because we were able to help the process of it, but extremely long processes just through not briefing the experts beforehand that we always say customer, not client or whatever, like just some key things, and just having understanding beforehand in the briefing shaves hours off the post-review process just with guidelines and communication and being clear and planning in advance. I guess as with most things, it comes to the planning and the preparation, doesn't it? And expectation setting.
Yeah, and I think definitely we've had on occasion where, especially when you're doing editing, as long as somebody says the correct word once.
Yeah. Control fine, control the cut. Yeah.
You can edit that one out and change it. But yeah.
Spookily, we haven't actually tried it fully, but spookily, when they've spoken for so long, you can clone that voice to say the right word, can't you? Which I know we're heading that way with many tools, where just to get the cloned voice to say client and then swap all instances of customer for client and that kind of thing. So
it's so hard, isn't it? I've been on quite a few when you mentioned to the team in advance of these are the words that you can't say. And it's almost like telling somebody, don't think of a purple elephant. And that's the word that they focus on. It's such a balance, isn't it? Of trying to make sure that they're aware of it versus don't say it.
Yes, definitely. I'm really conscious that we are running out of time here, aren't we? And we've got a few minutes to go. We could speak for a lot longer, but time is running out. So final question for both of you. For somebody who is just starting out in running B2B webinars, what is the one tip that you would give them to help them on their journey to success?
I can go first on that one. I would say, first starting out, having a clear documented process is going to be immensely helpful. Making sure everyone knows what to expect, what's coming, and how to execute will definitely help you dig into what works best for your teams. And then I would also say always listen to your audience. Set up the space for them to provide feedback, whether that be via registration, Q&A, when you're live, or chat, reactions, things like that. And then use the data that you gain from that to evolve.
And I think I would add, organizationally, invest in the data analysis side of it early. And depending on the platform you're using, it may have great data tools and it may not. And so some of those steps might be manual, but from the very beginning, it is absolutely worth the manual time to take and understand how things are progressing, because that is only going to benefit you long-term in establishing the type of series that you want. And even if it's someone like a marketing manager, or if you got a summer intern or whoever it might be at the time, that can certainly be helpful. And then from there, I would say understand how to connect insights across platforms. So we're very lucky that we happen to be on a channel marketing team that has multiple channels within it, as I mentioned earlier, social media and paid and in-person events. But in several organizations, those are still siloed from each other. And so what happens in those cases is that we stay in our lane, as we mentioned earlier, where I'm going to make the best webinar series ever, or I'm going to have the best social media handle ever. And quite honestly, those two can be so mutually beneficial to each other as well as others. If you're in the same organization, fantastic, communicate early and often. And if you're in a more siloed organization, make sure that you're sharing those insights with each other to talk about distribution, because it's only going to enhance the overall experience for your audience. And that's really what you're looking for.
Absolutely love that.
Yeah, I love it. Fantastic advice off you both. So thank you so much. That was excellent. Thank you so much. I think, like I said, we've got more questions and we could go forever, but we've run out of time. Really great parting advice there. Is there any other next step at all that you would like the audience to take? Like, we'll share links to the webinar series that we've talked about. We'll share links to your LinkedIn. People can let you know that they listened to this podcast episode and enjoyed it.
That would be awesome.
And if anybody joins the Fidelity webinar, make sure you react and give Lauren a little love heart emoji, please.
That's great. We're going to get 68 step tattoos. So if you guys want to do that.
Fantastic.
Provide advice and links for all of those. That's great. Thank you so much. Wishing the success to continue with your awesome webinar series and everything else that you guys do as a team. You really do lead the way with the best ways to do all of this in B2B marketing. So it's great to see. So really appreciate your time. And I'm sure everyone who is listening has got lots out of this conversation as well. So thank you very much, Steve and Lauren.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was nice to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.